For people who might be new, I'll go over a couple of our slides here for you. This is the disclaimer, just so that you're aware that Walpole Media is recording. So if you prefer to stop your video, you can do that.
Yeah.
These slides are courtesy of Christine Petro, our elder advocate. She shared them with us.
Oh, okay.
You can unmute yourself. We're going to ask that for the time period that Chief Carmichael is with us, that people remain muted so he can share the information he wants to share.
Carmichael's going to be on.
And then we'll unmute you so you can talk to each other or ask any other questions.
So you got to hit unmute. Mine says unmute. Should I hit that?
Well, you are unmuted because you're talking, so we can hear you. Muting will make it so that is the only one talking, and then
she can't get her face.
What he's saying.
Oh gosh.
Video right there.
Yeah.
And then this is how you get a list of the participants who's in the call. And we always like to tell you that there's a chat feature so that you can go and chat privately with other people within the call, or send questions to us as we're monitoring the call, so that we can get those questions over to the chief as well. You can change your view options. This is always a real popular question. How do I see everyone? There's a way that you can change it so that you can do a gallery view and see everyone's picture at once.
Yeah.
That, I'll stop my sharing and we can get going. I think I saw the chief is with us.
Okay, I thought, what time was that supposed to start?
He is.
We're here. So we're going to have everyone mute themselves and we'll give the floor. Thank you so much, Chief, for being here. You've got a nice audience of seniors, and I know you're so busy, and I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say we're so grateful for the department and your team who's doing so much for the town right now.
All right, awesome. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone's doing well and making it through this situation we have going on right now very well.
We've got them muted for you.
Okay.
It's yours.
My wife wishes she had one of those buttons for me all the time. So what are we going to do? We want to answer some questions, or?
Yes, I think you have some questions that were submitted.
I do, yeah. Do you guys want me to go through those first?
That would, unless you have other updates that you wanted to provide first. I'm not. The floor is
sure.
However whatever you want to communicate.
Well, first of all, thanks for. It's nice to see all those familiar faces up there. It's really cool. I love this stuff. It's really such a change, and we've all had to adapt to what's going on over the past month and a half, couple months. So glad to see everybody's doing well. And as far as the police department, it's business as usual for us. I mean, it's I got to tell you, I'm proud of our officers. This isn't something that I've seen in my career yet, and it was very great to see how quickly they adapted to it, and all the different policy changes we had to push out so quickly just to adapt to what was going on, as far as us being exposed to people that could be positive, or even really the challenge has just been trying to keep us healthy so that we can continue to do our job. We've had multiple officers that were exposed to positive exposures, where positive people had COVID-19. We've had 15 officers and dispatchers that have been tested, and thankfully everybody so far has been negative. It's great that we have the facility up at the stadium right now, because we can go up, first responders can go up and get tested pretty much 7 days a week. So if we have an exposure, a likely exposure, we send the officers up there, they get tested, and within about 24, 48 hours, we know whether or not those officers are positive. And the other good thing is that we have put officers on quarantine, because we have had, like I said, those positive exposures. In fact, we had an armed robbery at Cumberland Farms a couple of weeks ago, and that turned into a pursuit and then a foot pursuit with officers. And they ended up catching one of the guys. They transported him to the Norfolk House of Correction, and the sheriff called me the next day, or actually it was 2 days later, and let me know that individual was positive, tested positive. So that one person exposed about 10 officers just that night alone. And when we know that it's a situation, we can prepare for it and get our PPE gear, personal protection equipment ready. But in situations, dynamic situations like that, you don't have time to react. So sometimes that's going to happen. And so far, we got everybody back though. So we're back to 100% right now. Knock on wood. So I'll answer some of the questions. I got like 5 questions. The first one is, what kind of interventions are the Walpole Police Department doing for the homeless? And believe it or not, Walpole does have homeless people, and we do come across homeless people on a regular basis. You know, it's not obviously like Boston or some of the big cities where, you know, people are just constantly walking around that are homeless. But, you know, we do have mass transit. We have the train, we have the bus, we have people that are in transit. So we do come across homeless people quite frequently. And what we do is we provide outreach. We have the officers engage those people, and we offer services. So we typically will use like Father Bill's place up in Quincy, which is very good. They're very good about getting us beds. Pine Street Inn in Pine Street Inn in Boston. Framingham has a shelter for women. So we also help try to provide transitional assistance, which is through the state of Massachusetts if they need that. They might be from Walpole. We've we'll work with Walpole Housing to try and get them housing where they would go on the list here. And we have other organizations out there like Community Treasures who help provide us with gift certificates and resources, like things to a restaurant or something like that, so we can help feed them and, you know, do things like that. So there's a lot of outreach. And I'll tell you, our officers go above and beyond. I mean, I've seen them literally. One lady, a couple of weeks ago, not too long ago, a little longer than a couple of weeks ago, but she was in Walmart parking lot, and it was just her in the parking lot. It was pouring rain, and she had all of her belongings with her as she was sitting on the island. And our officers loaded up all of her stuff in our pickup truck. We took her to a homeless shelter in Framingham. We got her food and everything, and they helped her out. And it's those are the kind of things our officers do all the time. And it's definitely above and beyond to what you would see in other communities. And so we always appreciate that. And, you know, she was just ecstatic and couldn't believe that, you know, she hadn't seen that. She was recently homeless. So it was. The police department have motorcycles. It would seem that patrol cars are more practical. Patrol cars are more practical in some situations. We do have 3 motorcycles, and we have 2 ATVs as well too, 2 4-wheelers. But believe it or not, the number 1 complaint received by the Walpole Police Department is traffic complaints, speeding, blowing stop signs, you know, speeding through neighborhoods and that kind of thing. So many times what we're able to do is deploy the motorcycle unit out there. And it's just easier to use. It's more practical. They can be on the side of the road. They can pull into people's driveways. They can be up on the sidewalk out of the way, and they can do traffic enforcement that way. So they've been very, very successful in doing the traffic enforcement stuff. And, you know, contrary to what some people think, like we don't, typically that motorcycle officer is not, you know, they're not trying to hide. You know, you probably won't see them hiding behind a tree or behind a truck or something like that. They're usually right kind of out in the open, and they even catch me by surprise sometimes. But you'll see our officers out there running radar, and part of their responsibility is to do traffic enforcement. They do a very good job at that. So on the practicality side, you know, they use less gas. They're cheaper than a police car. And they supplement our fleet because, you know, as you all know, we have a budget, and the budget is the budget, and we only have enough money to get so many police cars. And so the motorcycles help supplement that. So it, you know, it helps with the budget process as well. So next question. Soon we will have 2 large apartment buildings downtown, cover 340 apartments. Do you anticipate problems that you normally haven't encountered? So people in a small area, as opposed to the same number of people spread out in single family homes. We certainly have a lot of concerns with the apartment buildings going in. And I'll use, you're probably all familiar with the Preserve complex, Hilltop up off of Route 1. That's about a 300 unit apartment building. It's been there for probably close to 20 years now. And we average about 250 to 300 calls there a year to that location. Now, that doesn't mean that those are all bad calls. Those might be a car lockout, a security check, or something like that. But we also have a certain amount of domestic disturbances and drug problems and things like that, or to that nature. So when we talk about the amount of apartment buildings going in over the next few years, and some that have already gone in, we're looking at an additional 1,000 apartment units in Walpole. So if you think about call volume, that means about another 800 to 1,000 calls per year that the department would have to be responding to. So that's pretty significant. And we recently did a what's called a strategic plan for the department, which would go out about 5 years. And that strategic plan basically covers what the department needs to do to make sure that we can handle that call volume going forward. And that means increasing officers. That right now we're at 45 officers total. We were at 40 for about 30 years before that. So we're up to 45, and our goal is to get to at least 50 in the next year or so, because we're going to need it with the amount of calls that we're going to have. We just know that it's going to be there. So we also respond to all the medical calls. So whenever you see the amount of fire calls and medical calls, those calls also add to our burden as well. So that's something that we're definitely paying attention to. And I'm hoping that with the COVID situation and the issue we're having with revenue and budgets, that we're going to still be able to maintain what we need to maintain the services that we have right now. And if you all know, like, most of our focus is on community policing and engaging the community with different programs and that kind of thing. And while we also want to deal with public safety issues, we want to make sure that we still have the ability to do all the community policing stuff that we do too. Now that we've been in the police station for a year, is there anything that you wished that had been done differently? Anything that was a pleasant surprise? I still want a bathroom in my office. That was a big hot tub. No, I'm really kidding. I don't need a bathroom in my office. The department is absolutely amazing. We still love it here. It's great being in the neighborhood now. So we get to, I like the center of town, but it's nice to be in a neighborhood too. We have across the street, as you all know, from the senior center, that we have the basketball court over there and street hockey and stuff like that. So we got the community policing things, and the biggest downfall is probably going to be growth. And when we got the station, it was we got $10 million, and we were told, that's it, $10 million, do what you can do with it. And we got a very nice, beautiful building. Everybody loves it. There's not a whole lot of room for growth. So as the town grows and the department grows, we're going to kind of be bursting at the seams a little bit, but we'll take it, because you guys all know the problems we had at the old building. And so no matter what, we're still in a better place right now. So the next one, before the MBTA commuter rail and Foxborough pilot started, there was much concern about the project in relation to Summer Street crossing. How has that turned out now that it's up and running? As a public safety official, I still have a lot of concerns with that crossing. I don't particularly think that at-grade crossings are safe in general. There's situations where that train is going across that intersection at about 40, 50 miles an hour. So it poses some public safety issues. And with the the school being nearby, with now a large apartment building being proposed in that area, we have a lot of concerns with it. But they also did a lot of good things for that intersection as well. So they put in sidewalks, and that we have marked crossings now. We have the high visibility crossings and crosswalks. So it did make it a safer area. It's one of those things that I just still worry about, with the amount of kids down there and them crossing across that roadway. but it is what it is, and we just keep working with the MBTA to make sure that it's safe. We also did the Safe project with the MBTA, where they went into our schools and they taught the kids about train safety, because that's always a concern too. You don't want to see our kids out there walking down the railroad tracks or crossing where they shouldn't be crossing. And so they were provided with some education on that as well. So it's all good. That's all I have for the questions, I think.
We had another question come through the chat. I don't know if you'll feel like this is the right place to field it, but the question is, who needs to get tested? And do you need to have signs before? Must be referring to COVID. I'm sure you have some knowledge.
So who needs to be tested is, first of all, the whole thing with the pandemic, right, is all of the things that we keep seeing every night on TV we need to follow, like the wearing the masks, washing your hands, having hand sanitizer, disinfecting areas where you are, maintaining that social distancing. All of that stuff really does help. It works. And the reason why I know that is because we've been doing it for 2 months, and somehow we still have not been able, nobody's gotten COVID in this police department, 50 people yet. Now, with that said, we have had positive exposures multiple times where people who were positive COVID cases, we were exposed to them, and sometimes we were exposed to them without personal protection equipment, so without gloves, without a mask, without goggles on, and multiple times we were hands-on with those people. So like the arrest where they got in a foot chase with somebody and it got physical when they were arresting them, and so we were exposed, but we still didn't get it. So whenever we have a positive exposure, we go get tested, and whenever we've had a presumptive exposure, meaning that the person's asymptomatic, like they're not really showing signs that they're sick, we still go get tested, because what we don't want to happen is if that person was carrying it, they might have had it, but we're not sure. We don't want that officer still like contaminating the rest of the department. So we go over and get tested. Obviously, like for everybody, if you get any of those things that are going on with the sore throat and the coughing and the things that are consistent with that, you need to obviously reach out to your doctor very quickly and go get tested. The temperature is another big thing. And here, where officers come on the shift, when they come in at the beginning of the shift, we check their temperature and we do a screening and make sure that they're not coughing and they don't have a sore throat and those sort of things. So if they do, they go home.
Thank you. We have another question also about COVID. Is the wearing of a mask in Walpole being enforced as mandatory per Governor Baker's directive?
Yeah, very good question. So I'll tell you this, that we're not enforcing that like a person speeding down the street, right? It's a civil violation. It is a governor's order, and failing to follow a governor's order is technically a crime. It's unlawful here in Massachusetts. And that law goes back to 1950. That's the law that the governor has been drawing his orders from, that have basically said, no gatherings of more than 10 people, and non-essential businesses can't work, and you can't have on-site consumption of food and alcohol. And now the new one, the masks. So all of those orders that he's coming out with are relative to a law that was back in the 1950s. It's chapter 639, section 8. And so that's where he's drawing that from. And so people, we've had to deal with all of those situations, the gatherings, the non-essential businesses working, all of that stuff. And we deal with it as a community policing effort. So as an education thing, we'll engage them. We'll let them know about the law. If it escalated, we could technically write tickets and do that, but that's not going to be our goal to do that. Now, the orders that the governor put out are also enforceable by the Board of Health, and specifically by the Board of Health, with the assistance of the police if they choose. So what we did here in Walpole is we worked with Melissa at the Board of Health, and we signed a memorandum of understanding that she's thereby asking us for their help to deal with this emergency. And so that now we've been extended. We're actually like Board of Health agents now. So their authority's kind of been extended to us as far as enforcing it. Now, we won't be driving around, stopping people that aren't wearing their mask. But if we do see gatherings of people or situations that just aren't safe, then we would do that. We would have to, enforce it.
Very helpful. And I'm sure that's been on people's minds because I'm sure, like me, when people are walking or out, you're seeing some people wearing, people not. I think the guideline is that if you cannot maintain that 6 feet of space, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So if people, we've got, someone's running down Common Street out for a jog, and that person's not wearing their mask. Well, the only time you have to wear the mask is if you anticipate that you'll be within that 6 feet of somebody. Even police officers, if you haven't, you've seen them around town, they're wearing their masks. Sometimes they're not. And that's when they anticipate that they're not going to be in, within that 6 feet of people. If the police officer's working a detail in the center of town by himself, when he's directing traffic, he's probably not going to have the mask on. But if he's talking to the construction workers or something, they're probably going to put it on.
Very helpful.
Question.
Linda has a question?
Yes, Chief Carmichael, just on a good note, I was up at the bargain center on Route 1 yesterday, looking at trying to see the flyover from the Cape of the F-15s, and there was a large gathering of people up there. Well, I wouldn't say it was that large, but we all kept within 6 feet of each other, and there was enough area for us to spread out, and everyone had a mask on. So, and there was a police officer, I don't know which one it was, but there was a police officer out there, and he was patrolling. So it was good to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real. We try and make those engagements positive because like a community policing response, even up at the school, like we get calls up the high school a lot. Yesterday, there was a whole lacrosse team up there playing, and I get it. I know they want to play. They want to get out of the house. And we want to encourage that too. We want people to be able to get out and get fresh air, especially with the nicer weather coming. But, we had to tell them, guys, you can't have a whole team out here playing lacrosse, like banging into each other. And it doesn't look good. And it's unlawful right now. So we had to like move them off of the fields.
Chief, if you've been fortunate so far, what is the backup plan if a significant number of your officers have to be quarantined?
That's a very good question. So there's a lot of things. We've actually already had to do it because we had 10 officers all quarantined at the same time. So what you have to do is you either change your shifts around. So there's been some notion about going to 12-hour shifts as opposed to 3 8-hour shifts, and having those shifts go for a couple of days, and then they get some days off, and then the new shifts come in. We haven't had to go to that yet, but what I did do is I pulled officers off from other assignments. So Officer Hart in Rebel, if you haven't seen Officer Hart around, he was in uniform, in full uniform, back on patrol for probably about a month. And our detectives, we pulled them out, put them in plain clothes, or some of the other assignments that we typically need somewhere else, we've pulled them back and put them in patrol. And we kind of did the same thing with dispatchers as well. So so far we haven't had to have a change where we had to go to 12-hour shifts or change our shifts around, but we have had to shift personnel around a lot.
Good question. Jerry, you have a question? You're muted, Jerry. Jerry, you're still muted. There you go. There you go.
Okay. Chief, I have a different view on this COVID-19, and I really don't believe it started in China. But I don't want to get into that because it's all, my view is different from everybody else. So my question is, for years and years and years, ever since God put together this planet and put life on it and everything, nobody has ever had to wear a mask. And all of a sudden, now we have this disease that's going around and killing people. And now everybody has to wear a mask. So what's the difference between people not wearing a mask from years and years ago to today because of this COVID-19 and it's killing people? That why do we have to wear a mask when there's a lot of fresh air outside?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. So I agree with a lot of what you said too. And by the way, I think you're in are you calling from San Francisco?
No, not really.
No? So you make some very good points. And you know how I've been answering that one is, I'm the police and people make the laws and I enforce the laws. I don't make them. But Governor Baker, when I just mentioned that law from 1950, the acts of, it was a chapter 639, section 8, that I never heard of that before. I never heard of it. I've been a police officer almost 30 years. I never heard of it. I had to look it up, read it, learn it, know it. And, then these orders started coming out where, the governor is telling the Board of Health and Public Health that you're to enforce this order with the assistance of the police. And so that caused a lot of confusion too, because, we don't want to be violating people's constitutional rights either, right? Like if you're walking down the street, you don't have your mask. We want to be very careful with how we approach that. But you know what? It's some of it with me, even like this morning driving through Dunkin' Donuts, I put my mask on when I pulled through. And it wasn't so much because I was worried about spreading the disease. I was just doing it out of like respect for the girl that was working in there. And in addition to what you just said, there's other things like, if you wear the cloth mask and say you go into Walmart, you walk around Walmart and you're exposed to other people, and then you come out and you get in your car and you take the mask off and hang it on your mirror, and then you go home or you drive to Stop and Shop or whatever, and you put the mask on again. To me, that mask is contaminated already. So you have to be very careful about that. We wear masks, even before this happened, we wore masks for things like overdoses. And we would never go to an overdose, put your mask on, clear that call, and save that mask. Like that mask is now exposed, so we would get rid of it. So to your point, I have some of the same concerns. And I get it, but like I said, these orders, we just take what's given to us and do what we can with it.
Thank you, Chief. Joanne, did you have a question, Mrs. Damish? You're muted there, so we'll need to unmute you so we can hear you. Thanks for all this time, Chief. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
See if I can get Joanne unmuted. There you go, Joanne.
Can you hear me?
We can.
I'm late to the meeting, so I don't know if this was addressed. But last week on Facebook, a couple of people complained because to each other because a local restaurant was bringing food out, serving the food outside, a takeout. We're wearing no mask and no gloves.
Oh yeah.
What do you do in that instant? Call the Board of Health?
We can't. Yeah, we do. So what happens when there's any of the violations of the COVID orders, so Governor's Order 13, the first one with gatherings and food on-site consumption and all that, and then now the new order, the Order 31, we will respond to that. And actually, I think we saw it on there too. And I know Facebook is going to solve the world's problems, so we can all feel at ease with that. But we did. We actually responded down there. We spoke to the owners. And just kind of, like I said, advise them that you can't have on-site consumption. And they weren't doing it deliberately. They just had the chairs out, so people just naturally came out and sat down to eat. And so, you know, we use it as a community policing thing, go down there and engage them and let them know. And then we do have to notify the Board of Health. We notify Melissa or Reich or anybody down there at the Board of Health whenever there's any of those violations. Same thing has happened with some of the non-essential businesses opening. You know, we go down, we talk to them, and then we let the Board of Health know of the violation.
I have a second thing.
Okay.
Did you talk anything about scams before I came into the meeting?
No.
No. I had a call this morning from someone who identified himself as calling from PCH, would be the Publishers Clearinghouse. He wanted me to think that anyhow, and to tell me I won a prize, and it would give me a phone number to call and so forth and so on. So I asked him what my name was. He couldn't tell me my name, so that was the end of that conversation. But you know, some people might get excited to hear from someplace, thinking they are hearing from the Publishers Clearinghouse. And my husband does enter it. I cannot stand it, but my husband does enter it. To me, it's just a thing trying to sell goods, because you get a whole package of ads with it. But anyhow, I think that just to be aware of this for everybody, there's probably another scam out there. Be careful who you talk to or don't talk to. Thank you.
We're actually going to have the Norfolk County Sheriff on to address scams specifically that are targeting seniors right now. So I'm sure you're there for that one. There's a lot of census and.
Yeah. Be very, very careful right now with things that you get through email that you click on, or even if they're COVID related. And be very careful of any of the scams where they're calling you and asking you for money or personal information. Well, we're investigating a case right now where this poor woman sent $50,000 to somebody because they said that it's one of those arrest scams. Somebody in her family was arrested and they want to bail money. And we're investigating multiple situations right now. And some of these people coming up we know from New York and New Jersey area, they're picking up money, they're meeting people and giving them money. And one of the ones we did a search warrant and tracked the IP address, which came back to Russia. So these people, like the people are putting the money into an account, and once it's in that account or it's wired, it's gone for good, and we can't get it back. And there's not much we can do because it's in foreign countries. So be very, very careful with these. Don't send any money to anybody unless you 100% know it's a family member or something like that.
Very sound advice. Thank you.
The same thing applies what Joanne was talking about spam. If you look at your emails and all of your emails, and a lot of it says, that somebody is looking for money, somebody is looking for different things to join their organization. And especially now, because you have like all the Democrats trying to flip the House and make it all Democratic, so they're all looking for money. And I don't want to give anybody money, because I feel that any money that's given to them is not going to go for what it's intended to, but it's going to go into their pockets. That's me, though.
Just we always talk about being vigilant. We'll continue, especially now, to do that. Chief, I cannot thank you enough for giving us this time today. Always such a wealth of information. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And it's great to see everyone's faces on there. And I'm looking forward to when we can all hang out next door again.
Right. You know? We're going to unmute everyone so they can say hello. But we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Bye, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not unmuted.
So what's everybody doing?
Beautiful day outside. I hope people got outside and got a walk in. They said no.
Sherry, it's nice to see you back home again. Instead of in Hawaii.
I know. I was thinking that you're not on vacation.
I wish. My house is put back together, so I'm back to normal.
Oh, good.
Back to normal. That's good.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to go out and not have to wear a mask. I can't breathe.
That is a
She was
problem.
Marilyn's neighbor.
Like the chief said,
He had a nice,
you need to be within the 6
You know,
feet of the space. If you're going for a walk and you're not going to see anyone,
that's right.
have one.
Well, I gave you a little bit of the chief. Next week, I'm supposed to
last Thursday, we had quite a birthday parade for Paul Nolan. He had 2 fire trucks, 74 cars, and 3 cruisers go by his house for his 90th birthday.
Wow. Oh, yeah. And made the TV news too.
Oh.
Channel 5 News.
Oh, wonderful.
Wow.
There'll be one for Jeanette Penza this Friday afternoon too. I think it's at 4:30.
Yeah. But it made the 5:30 news.
I'm
on Channel
sorry.
5.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't see myself, but I got on late and I managed to navigate and I got in on about the last 10 or 15 minutes. I just want to say thank you, Chief. You're a great guy. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. We got good people to work here.
You can say, I say amen to that.
Hey, Chief.
Carrie is very fortunate and she's got a great staff.
So we definitely.
No, she is.
And Carrie herself is very good too. Pat yourself on the back. Go ahead.
Her name won't come to me.
Hey, Chief.
And
Oh,
Debbie,
yes.
I like your emails. I appreciate your emails. It's the only way I can keep up with my getting online.
Sarah, did you have a question for Chief?
I actually did. I actually just wanted to say thank you to the police department. The other day I had an issue. I needed to get an inspection sticker on my car and he passed me, but I had an issue and I was having trouble getting into the site, and a very nice officer gave me the exact site to get into and gave me the first couple of steps, and then I was able to get the whole thing fixed.
Oh, good.
I just want to say thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And Jeanette's party, she lives in my complex. Does anybody know what time that parade's going to be?
Yes, 4:30.
4:30?
And I think she's going to be over on the steps of Blessed Sacrament Church with somebody.
Oh,
That's what I
okay,
heard.
great. Thank you.
4:30, we'll have to do that. It's
So
Jeanette.
how old is she?
He's
You
100.
can ask her.
Yeah, she's well over 90 and she's a pistol.
He's over. I think she's 100.
No, really?
Oh,
No.
really?
No way.
No.
No.
Pretty close to it.
Close to it, absolutely, yep.
Well, she might be. She might be 98.
No.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Her mother
Yeah.
lived to 108, I think.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well,
the What time did you say that was going to be?
The cars are going to meet in Blessed Sacrament Church parking lot, and then I think we're going to leave. That's at 4:15, and then we're going to leave from there.
What day is it? What day?
This tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh.
Yes.
95 tomorrow.
Yeah. I think the police
How
and the
old?
fire departments are participating.
95.
I don't know.
Is she going to be at Blessed Sacrament?
Someone said on the step. That's what I heard.
Okay, great.
That's what I heard. Now, I don't know if that's changed, but she and Father John are going to be out there because initially she didn't want it, and I think he talked her into it because,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
such a big deal. And I've got to thank the police and the fire department. You are really lifting the morale of people around town here with all these great things you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's wild. Like we've actually, whoever thought of
Remember-
this, right? We're doing these parades, and now we're doing 6 or 7 of them a day.
Terrific.
I guess you have a lot of downtime, huh?
So we really don't, but we're trying to fit it in.
So
Yeah.
nice.
I just
What if-
threw a parade for his teacher for her birthday, and he said to me, he's 10, and he said, even when this is over, we should still do this. So can you imagine to have a parade on your birthday?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So-
leave everybody because I have another Zoom meeting to go to at 4 o'clock, so.
Okay.
I'll do a couple other
Bye.
things
Bye,
before then.
Jerry.
Bye.
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 So,
Hi, Mary.
Bye.
Chief
How are you?
Carmichael, do you know if you're gonna be able to do the students police academy this summer? Is that ever? You don't
Yeah,
know?
well, so far, we have a class for the last week in June, and
Oh.
we're not changing it yet. Like, unless something changes, we're gonna keep going forward with it. If it does come to the point where we can't do it in June, we're gonna try and move our first one to August. So we still
Oh.
want 2 classes in.
Well, you could use what the state police did at their graduation. I watched it on Facebook. They all
Yeah,
had masks on. They're all in the football field, 6 feet apart. It was very interesting, but kind of eerie. But now they're all going to work. The governor needed them, all
Yeah.
240 of them.
I know.
That's good.
Chief, will there be something done in some way to honor the high school graduates in this graduating class?
Yeah, we just met with Mr. Imbush, the principal at the high school, and Bridget Goff, the superintendent of schools, on that. There's some discussion right now about doing we don't think that they're gonna be able to do like a regular traditional graduation, unfortunately. And I feel so bad for these, our seniors, because these poor kids, they didn't get a prom, they're not getting a graduation. They've missed out on the last few months of high school, which is a ball. And, we want to give them something, I hope, that can be a memory for them. And what they might try and do is have almost like these parades we're seeing, bring all of the seniors in a car through the back of the high school. They will get their diploma in the parking lot, and then everybody's going to kind of line up in the parking lot, and we're going to take them for a parade, which would go out onto Common Street, the whole length of Main to My Lodge Street, and come down Washington Street all the way back to the high school.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things we have to adapt to, and we totally feel for those seniors this year, and we hope that we can give them something that they can remember.
That'd be great because then people in town could be along the car parade route cheering them on.
Right, and we made it wide enough and broad enough that people could be spread out. Even if it's near your neighborhood or something, you could go out and just be somewhere along the route for when everybody goes by.
That's terrific.
A way to recognize them.
That would be great. I feel so bad for them.
Yeah.
See all your faces.
You see, can you see me?
Hi, Mary.
Yeah. I want to show you my mask I made. I made this mask. Can you see it?
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it.
Very nice.
Mary.
Yeah. I sewed that together.
Good for
Here's my
you.
favorite one. I got the Patriots.
Oh, I like that one.
Go Pats.
Oh, wow.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a mask these days.
This is made out of a pair of socks.
Oh, gosh.
Whatever
I lost
works.
the even pen.
I don't know how that one works. Oh, it says that in there. Let me see.
I'm gonna, I have a phone call. Thank you, Chief. It was wonderful.
Yeah,
You're welcome. Nice to see you.
Here. We try to usually keep these.
Nice to see everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
everyone. Bye.
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 Bye.